and total atomic annihilation, the rebuilding of this great nation of ours may fall to you. That's why we at Vault-Tec have prepared these educational materials for you to better understand the 7 defining attributes that make you special.
I am writing this because I don't have much time. Things here in Vault 79 have gotten dire. But before I talk about what is happening now, I'm going to start at the beginning. Before the Great War between the United States and China, the government was aware that war was coming. As a way to prevent its citizens from nuclear fire, they partnered with Vault-Tec and started Project Safehouse. The original goal of this project was to preserve selected citizens so once Earth was safe again, we could rebuild our country. However, somewhere along the planning of this project, it went from a noble goal to an experiment. Each vault would have its own experiment to test how people would react in various situations. The staff of the vault would then monitor the subjects and record the various outcomes. I was a scientist for one of these vaults, Vault 79. My vault was supposed to be one of the control vaults, meaning our vault was actually built to preserve the citizens. The catch, however, was that all of our citizens were to be injected with a medication created by the government that was supposed to create immunity to most, if not all, known diseases. I've checked, and this was apparently given to the other control vaults, and is just like a flu shot. The day the bombs fell went completely as planned. Civilians rushed towards the vault, attempting to escape the sound of the missile sirens being played throughout the town known as Vancouver, Washington. The ones on the list were allowed in, and those who weren't were shut outside of our steel door. I can still remember the screams of those who were left outside, and then the sudden deafening silence. As planned, all vault inhabitants were led to the medbay, where me and my staff team injected them with the medication. After all citizens of the vault were medicated, they were briefed on the rules and jobs needing to be carried out, and sent to get some rest. Everything appeared normal, and even a bit hopeful, knowing that we were safe from the fire. After about a week is when things got strange. While I was sitting at my desk in the medbay, a worried mother led her child in who claimed that she had a sore throat. After I was done with her examination, from what I could tell she was 100% healthy, but after her mother insisted something was wrong, I thought she could possibly have strep throat, and let her spend the remainder of the day resting in her medical cot. Not wanting it to spread, I told her mother to leave her child, but she refused. Later that day, while I was tending to a hurt engineer, I heard someone cry out in pain from the medbay. The mother came running from her child's room, holding her neck. Blood was gushing from what looked like a slash to her neck. She fell to the floor, gurgling, and choked out her final words. What has she become? I tried to question her, but it was too late. At this point, Vault security had arrived and were ushering all the citizens out. The overseer following the security walked over to me, asking how this could possibly happen after only 2 weeks in the vault. Confused, I said, "What do you mean 2 weeks?" In reality, it only felt like a matter of days since we got into the vault. He ignored me and followed behind security as they entered the child's room and shut the door behind them. After a brief moment, the overseer returned and, void of emotion, explained to me that the mother had died due to the stress brought on by her child's illness, and that there was nothing else to see. I nodded and returned to my desk. This is when things started to get critical. The following week, more and more people flooded into the medbay with their throats in pain. In hindsight, we should have killed the infected right there and then. I did my best to help treat the patients, but one day after my lunch break, I returned to witness what used to be one of the teachers brutally ripping a nurse to shreds. The teacher no longer appeared human. Her skin was a dirt brown, and she had yellow spots. There were needle-like spikes protruding from her spine. Her eyes were out of proportion with her head, and each of her fingers ended in a razor-sharp blade. My survival instincts kicked in, and I ran over and activated the emergency medbay lockdown. This shut all the doors immediately and activated the magnetic locks. Shortly after this, the overseer and his men had arrived and started to set up defences outside the medbay. Adding to this, nearby vault residents who had witnessed the incident had started to scream in panic. The overseer attempted to contain the situation by ordering everyone back to their living quarters. All residents were to remain in their rooms until the lockdown was discontinued. Food would be delivered to rooms by the Mr. Handy robots, and all scientist personnel were to report to the overseer's office. Once I arrived at the overseer's office, there were 3 people. The overseer, chief of security, and head engineer. "Sit down," the overseer said. "This isn't how it was supposed to work. None of this," he said. "What do you mean?" I queried, confused by his statement. The infected. "I had a bad feeling this would happen. I know Vault-Tec told you that this was a control vault, but the true purpose was to test the effectiveness of a new biological weapon. Damn it, there was supposed to be more time to prepare, and now we're as good as dead," the overseer proclaimed, with a hint of panic. "No, we can make it through this. All we have to do is make it to the vault doors," I said. "No, we can't, because you locked down the medbay. The only way to get the door open is to go to the lab to deactivate the lockdown, and we won't even make it close with those things crawling around," the overseer said. "But they're locked in there. How would they escape?" I replied. "No, the reason I called you here is because I thought you'd prefer to die without getting eaten alive. Look." The overseer then turned the security camera display on, and to our horror, the lab door was torn open, and we watched as all the creatures crawled out and started to attack security guards and any resident who was still trying to get to their room. Then, the overseer looked at us one last time and pulled out his 10mm and shot himself in the head. Blood and brain matter covering the monitors. "The overseer is right," the head engineer said, as he grabbed the gun and proceeded to do the same, his body falling limp into my lap. "We can't just give up. We can still save some of the residents if we're smart about it. We can get to the lab and get that vault door open," the head of security said. "You're right," I said, grabbing the pistol from the lifeless grip of the now-deceased head engineer and handed it to him. "Let's go." Throwing open the office door, we sprinted towards the lab, the remains of residents unfortunate enough not to find hiding spots littering the floor. We continued running when all of a sudden the lights flickered and shut off. Damn it, I thought, those things must have gotten into the reactor room somehow. My train of thought was cut off, however, as I heard something growl in the darkness, and the head of security and I abruptly stopped in our tracks. With each passing second, the growling grew louder as it got closer to us. Suddenly, the lights overhead sparked back to life. With the room now fully illuminated, we were able to see the source of the growling. One of the infected stood snarling and foaming at the mouth before me and the head of security. It was almost a carbon copy of the teacher who killed the nurse. Without warning, the thing lunged at the head of security and began to swipe at his chest. Go was the only thing that was able to escape his lips before his jugular was ripped out right before my eyes. I wasted no time in taking his advice and continued sprinting towards the lab. Right as I got to the door, I turned around and saw 3 of the creatures sprinting towards me. I flung open the door and slammed it shut behind me, activating the lock on the wall to the left of the handle. Now, I sit here typing this message. They have almost ripped their way through the door. I don't have much time. There are more of them than the ones outside this door. I cannot allow them to be free. I'm going to send this message to all of the terminals in the vault and close the blast door to the lab. For the love of God, if you're reading this message, do not open the blast door. Do not let them escape.